Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Clint Fandrick. I am the general manager for Mundos Sostenible Consultores, which is based out of Arequipa, Peru. I'm very excited to be presenting the business plan for 2018 for MSC. There's a lot of material to get to, so I'll get right to it. These are the items that we'll be covering today in the presentation. First, we'll be talking about the challenges that we're hoping to address or why we're doing what we're doing here in Peru. We'll also be talking about the structure of MSC's business plan, how this business plan actually addresses the challenges that we talked about, and then how do we measure success, or how will we know we are making an impact? How will we know that we are accomplishing our goals? Principal among these challenges are those inherent with developing economies like Peru's. So the economic challenges in Peru are not entirely different from other developing places. Many challenges are similar elsewhere, but it's important to understand the problems that exist in Peru in order to understand why MSC's business plan is laid out as it is. So when it comes to difficult economics, many of these aspects will be obvious, but we just want to be clear. And with the poor market for project development, this one's a little bit more nuanced, but it's very important to understand in order to have a well-designed program. And then we'll talk a little about climate change. So first among these challenges is in the difficult economics. So project financing in even the most developed economies remains difficult, but in middle income and developing countries like Peru, the challenges are a little more stark. While prices continue to fall, particularly for solar and wind, the trick for project developers and clean energy advocates is to convey the long-term economic benefits of energy efficiency and renewable energy. Average incomes present basic challenges, but this situation is improving rather quickly. In the same way, many small businesses have very narrow windows for return on investment for clean energy projects. Current technology supply chains remain pretty inefficient, and this is particularly the case in Peru. The good news on that front is that there are significant opportunities to utilize regionally sourced technology from, say, Chile or Brazil that have yet to be fully realized, so there's a lot of opportunities there. Economic and project development assistance from the public sector has been pretty lackluster in the past. A significant policy yet to be fully developed in Peru is net metering or something similar. Without net metering, small and medium scale project economics will remain extremely challenging, but there have been murmurings recently that this may change in Peru, so we'll see how that goes. And while some utilities have been active in promoting renewable energy project development, the energy generation, transmission, and distribution structure in the country has remained a bit of a roadblock to further development. So energy generation, transmission, and distribution are all separate entities. So any grid-connected projects require developers to herd a lot of cats to get projects off the ground. The next challenge is poor market for project development. So currently, there are many project developers in Peru that utilize technology that is of a lower quality, and they don't offer follow-up support for projects that they implement. So something will go wrong maybe a couple months down the road, and the project developer will not follow up with the client or won't make themselves available for the client. So past programs implemented on behalf of the national government have suffered from corruption, bad program design, and a proliferation of subpar technology. Many project developers often lack the expertise like engineering staff, technical expertise, etc. to build high-quality projects. And those who do have skilled staff and use current technology are often outcompeted by low-quality products and services in the market. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle. It's difficult to find useful information as a customer of a potential project, and the low project quality is a detriment to future development, which is again kind of exacerbating this vicious cycle. And finally, among the challenges is climate change, and this is something that's kind of bearing down on the entire region, and Peru is a country that is particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change. The national government has prioritized actions on this issue and occasionally allocates public funds to spur solutions, but doesn't always design the programs appropriately or effectively. So how is Peru vulnerable? There are changing precipitation patterns that are expected to become extremely detrimental to the agricultural sector and to sources of drinking water throughout the country. In recent decades, melting alpine glaciers have provided a boon for agriculture in some parts of the country, but national and regional governments have yet to formulate long-term plans for sustainability of local agricultural communities and economies. Peru's intended nationally determined contribution, or INDC, through the Paris Climate Accord highlights programs and initiatives to be taken by 2030. These efforts concentrate mainly on adaptation to the effects of climate change, not mitigation. So adaptation might be, for example, reinforcing reservoirs to capture more fresh water. Mitigation would be, for example, reducing emissions through clean energy project development and that kind of thing. So to address these challenges with private sector solutions and to complement what is already being undertaken by public institutions, MSC has assembled a three-part business plan. The first segment covers a subscription and certification process that MSC will use to vet project developers and foster sustainable local partnerships, as well as create a sustainable program. The second is the formation and utilization of funding strictly for the development of clean energy projects. The final segment encapsulates a broad spectrum of consulting services and supportive activities for clean energy end users, our local partners, and other actors in the industry in Peru. This first element sets out criteria for clean energy project developers in Peru. So projects to be assisted by our program must demonstrate a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions over a specific grams of CO2 equivalent per dollar, which we'll get on. We'll go into that a little bit more later on. The equipment or technology deployed must have a 5-year guarantee. This, of course, doesn't include batteries. Batteries are a little bit of a different animal. And then also, developers must offer service and maintenance support during the guarantee period at standard cost to clients. So basically, be available for service and support should anything go wrong with the system after install. So for each project rebate, there is a short application process which must be completed and submitted before installation begins. This application includes 7 basic questions: system type, solar, wind, geothermal, etc., system total cost, the system's location or region of Peru, the system or offset size in kilowatt hours annually, the previous or existing energy type. Is it replacing a system that's based on natural gas, or is it grid electricity, etc.? Who is the owner of the system, the name of the end user, in other words, and then the owner type. So is it a private citizen? Maybe they're getting a system for their house. Is it a business, a school, a hospital, etc.? So from these basic questions, we'll be able to formulate a range of important data for internal use and for our donors. In the short run, this subscription will serve as a primary source of revenue for MSC. In order to put this fund together, MSC will be applying for funding to build what we're calling the Clean Energy Project Development Fund through foundations, non-governmental organizations, and other international organizations that have climate change mitigation or energy transition goals. The amount of the discount ultimately depends on the subscription tier of the project developer proposing the project and the overall project cost. The discount will be dispersed directly to the project developer on behalf of the client through a contracted agreement. So for example, all other things being equal, a $7,000 clean energy project will result in a discount of, for the first tier of the project developer certification, $985, again, for a $7,000 project, and that's 14.1%. On the other end of the spectrum, with the highest tier, a $7,000 clean energy project could receive $2,600, or 37.1% of the overall project cost. We want to be sure to mention that nearly 100%, or as close to 100% as is possible, of all funds in the program will go directly to the customers of participating project developers in Peru. So there is very little overhead for this program. MSC is simply acting as a pass-through. MSC generates revenue through other programs and services, which we'll get into in a second. And the sustainable account balance will be maintained through annual or semi-annual reapplication to grantors, for which we will maintain a successful project catalog. We will have regular engagement with donors and grantors through follow-up reporting. And MSC, as a condition for emitting the discounts, will require project verification. This could include site visits, access to energy bills, etc., from the end users of the systems installed. And this will be a 6-month, 2-year, and 5-year follow-up with the end users, which will be involved in the contract as well. Data will be collected on key criteria to be emitted to donors, as well as to further improve the program over time. And this includes things like the functional status of the system over time, the performance of the system against expectations at the time of installation, and the quality of the interaction between the project developer and the client for service and maintenance and general follow-up. Essentially, we propose that MSC act as a nexus or a point of connection between international organizations, clean energy project developers here on the ground in Peru, and their customers. Our intention with the subscription is to take on the role of local and regional sponsor. MSC will also fill in gaps in the data about energy trends and potential in and around Peru, as well as provide up-to-date market analysis to assist those working in clean energy in Peru to more efficiently expand the industry. So, how does this business plan address the challenges we discussed earlier? For starters, through the implementation of the Clean Energy Project Development Fund, we fundamentally hope to improve the return on investment or reduce the payback period of clean energy projects here in Peru. And this is something that is likely to be especially important for small businesses considering a clean energy project today. Also, we've given a lot of thought to the price structure of the annual subscriptions and the discounts. We've looked at the elasticity in the clean energy market in Peru, and we're encouraged on 2 fronts. The first is that there are substitutes for many clean energy projects. So think a diesel generator in the case where someone doesn't have access to the electricity grid. This indicates that the price is a central consideration between alternatives. And second, given the lower levels of disposable income in Peru, the upfront price of investments, particularly for small businesses, is very important. Therefore, a program to reduce that upfront cost is likely to have a significant impact on the market. So the discounts are structured to give more incentives to small and medium-scale projects. The price for project developers of the subscription should be less than the amount earned by project developers through an increase in demand over the baseline. So in other words, the subscription should cost them less than the annual increase of their revenue due to our program. This will provide incentive for project developers to join the program and will maximize the number of end users that will have access to the discounts. And when it comes to the challenges in the project developer market, the program improves the interaction between developers and their customers by incentivizing the developers to deliver higher quality products and services through access to the discounts for the customers. Again, this is in reference to the 5-year performance and service and support guarantees. One of our primary objectives here is to drum up more work for our local partners and to spur the industry, which will ultimately put MSC in a better position to reach our environmental sustainability goals as well as those of our grantors and donors. And finally, when it comes to climate change, MSC will provide information to applicants and other interested parties about emissions for different energy sources, as well as the source of the regional energy mix to streamline the considerations regarding issuing of a discount. There is a lot of great information provided by the Peruvian government through the Ministry of Energy and Mines that we will synthesize and make available in reports. So for example, in this table, we've put together regional emissions per kilowatt hour for the 5 southernmost regions in Peru based on the energy generation mix of renewables and traditional thermal combustion power plants. And as a global leader in collective action on climate change, including being the host of the COP20 conference in December of 2014 in Lima, Peru has prioritized solutions to climate change through the country's INDC to the Paris Climate Accord. But it's important to note that with comparatively few greenhouse gas emissions, Peru is relying on a regional approach with neighboring countries to reduce aggregate greenhouse gas emissions. This might take attention away from technology deployment and renewable energy project development, but we see this as an opportunity for us and our partners to play that role in Peru in concert with the government's climate change adaptation programs. And finally, how does MSC measure success regarding this program? We understand that funding organizations will want to ensure that their money is being well spent. To this end, MSC has determined certain price thresholds for dollars spent per kilogram of CO2 equivalent avoided, as well as the price per watt of the installed system to ensure that our partners are remaining competitive and not taking advantage of the program. Since the program relies on participation from the end users for up to 5 years after the disbursement of the discount, MSC will calculate emissions savings over that entire period. Once the price per unit of emissions avoided over several projects in different regions is evaluated, MSC will be able to determine where program dollars are best spent, on what types of projects, and what types of end users, etc. Altogether, MSC will make data collection through the program a priority in order to continuously improve the effectiveness of dollars spent in this effort. Thank you so much for your interest in our program. And if you have any questions about us or our local partners, or if you want some information to get involved, please do not hesitate to send me an email or give me a ring at either my US or Peruvian phone numbers. I'm always happy to discuss opportunities to improve and expand our efforts here in Peru, always. Be sure to check out our website, www.mundosostenibleconsult.com, for more information on clean energy in Peru and our current projects and initiatives. Again, thanks for listening in.